Welcome to another episode of the Paragon Path. This is episode 13, The Power of Color. We talk with Katrisa, can't pronounce her last name, about being a Paragon Color and what that means, what she did to get to that point, and how you can potentially get to that point as well. On top of that, we talk about how you might bring up the topic of a Paragon Color to your kingdom if it's not one of the ones that recognizes it, or what are things that you can do to bring it forward. As always, stick around, listen, follow us for more. Welcome to another episode of the Paragon Path. This is, oh God, what did I name this episode? I had a good name for it and I forgot it. I posted it and everything.
Episode 14.
It's 13. It's episode 13, technically.
Ooh,
Yeah.
good. 13. I like it.
Right before Halloween, we're episode 13.
The best. It's the Path and Technicolor. No, I don't know.
It's not bad. I do like that one.
We'll just
The
rename
Power
it
of Color. There we go. The Power of Color. I like internal rhymes, and that's close-ish. It's not perfect. Okay, episode 13, Power of Color. We have 1/1.5 guests. It'll depend on if Bonnie is able to get in and out. She is in Ontario at the moment, so it's few bars. But Katrisa is our main guest here, and I'm going to have her introduce herself and a little bit of your experience in Amtgard.
Hi, I'm Katrisa Chacon, Paragon Color from the Celestial Kingdom. I've been playing Amtgard for 6-ish, 7-ish years. But I've been LARPing since I was 12, which is about 30 years now. In a group that is Amtgard adjacent. It actually broke off of Amtgard at around the founding of the Celestial Kingdom. So,
Oh, I know which one that is.
yeah,
Because, yeah. Because Michael
yeah,
was in the
that,
park. The Barradoon Park that split off and then
yes,
became, yep, okay. There's a
yes,
whole
that.
history lesson there.
It's a huge history lesson. I lived it. So I grew up basically in what is Amtgard version 6.
Mm-hmm.
When bards had mimic and all of that wonderful stuff. The heal spell was 20 million lines long.
I mean,
It's only marginally shorter now. And you had the
right,
whole mace arrow bash stuff at the beginning that I can never remember.
right.
And warriors could never point at you and yell stuff and have things happen.
True.
So that still breaks my brain a little bit. But um, yeah, so I've been full Amtgard for about 6, 7-ish years now. Um, Joined in with my husband and my now 13-year-old, then like 6-year-old
Hmm.
son. So I would take the field as I am the parent so that he could play with us. And then as he got bigger, I transitioned to the sideline mom, and then transitioned to hydrating because Texas and full plate nail and
Mm-hmm.
leather and no shade. And the
Nope.
sun is that level in Mario where it's trying to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
Texas. And I didn't want anyone to die for real, least of all my family.
Yeah.
Um, so I started hydrating and I was just taking points in color because I had already been playing for 3 decades
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I could step on the field, but I don't really need to prove anything. Like I'm happy, just as happy watching as I am doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that led me to starting to hydrate the kind of kingdom level events and doing what I call active hydration, which is not I sit on this field and when people walk by, I go water,
Mm-hmm.
hydrate. No, I will load up a tray with shot glasses filled with water and walk out like a waitress on the field and dodge arrows and watch for people that are in insubstantial states or they're frozen or wounded and the battle's kind of moved away from them a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
then I approach and give them water. If they're frozen or they're counting down something, I'll take over the count for them. Or if they're casting their charge spell, I'll take over the incant for them. so they could have 5 seconds to breathe and get some water
Hmm.
and then let them continue on their way.
That's really important in Texas. It's really important everywhere. Let's point that out. If you are wearing armor of any kind, please drink water, get
Yes.
electrolytes. No dying on our field. We've gone a pretty decent long time without anybody dying. So,
Well, that's why I made this really big push because about 2 years into me playing Amp I heard of a player in Lubbock who passed away
mhm,
from dehydration. He'd been playing all day and stopped and sat down under a tree, and it all caught up to him, and from what I heard, he didn't wake up.
mhm,
And having my family, like legitimate family on the field, I was like, that's not happening
right.
to mine.
Mhm.
Not on my watch.
It's we talked about it a lot in the Paragon Warrior episode because armor is such a big part of their class. What you can do to cool down. If you want to know more about that, it should be tagged in the Paragon Warrior episode. But just drink water all the time, like all of it, all the time. It's a very important thing. And the way that you talk about how you almost are a like a bridge support. You're supporting the the actual person, not in game, but like also allowing them to continue their process in game is a very interesting and I think balanced way to integrate a real life support class in our game that is not just the healer. It's legitimately like, hey, you need to breathe, you need to drink water. You're gonna still keep playing the game, or I'm gonna help you, but you got to think about your body first. And,
Right. And I mean, I've heard arguments before, especially when I started. It's like you don't need to go out and take the water to them. These are grown adults. They can know when to go get a drink of water.
no,
And I'm
amp
like,
guarders are children.
well, I mean, for the most part, we're adults. And yes, we should be old enough and mature enough and responsible enough to listen to our own bodies and to drink water. However, I've got an advanced degree in education, which comes along with a lot of study on how people learn and something called flow,
Mm-hmm.
which is when you're in an activity and you're so engrossed and engaged by said activity, regardless of what activity it is, you're going to forget everything else, literally everything else, which includes listening to your body when you need to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
And so there needs to be this outside intervention watching for that. And in traditional athletic activity and sports, those are the coaches that are watching their players and going, you know what? I need to sub you out. You're going to come off the field. You're going to sit down. You're going to drink a little bit. And after a couple of plays, I'll sub you back in when you've caught your breath. Because if you keep playing in this state, you're going to make a mistake and someone's going to get hurt.
Mm.
We're no different.
Yep.
And I agree. Reeves, marshals, those should be the first line of defense for this kind of player safety. But people want to play, and yes, it's service and yes, it's sacrifice to give up your playtime to see to the safety of our player base. But if our players are getting hurt, they won't play.
Mm-hmm. Well, unless they're warlords that are super dedicated, then they keep going out and hurting themselves, and then we have to tell them to stop when they're like 30. We're like,
Yeah,
ah,
yeah, no, let's not. I'd love to see the 50-year-old warlords.
it's great. Yeah, there's like 8 of them, 12 of them. I don't know. There's not that many,
There's
and
not that many. We could count them on hands and maybe a foot.
probably there. Yeah, there's not a ton, but listen to your body. The flow thing is, um, it is very the actual theory of flow and how it works and how you get into it is very advanced, like psychology level and body. Uh, I can't think of it, but your mind does a lot of things, and then it overrides it's mind over matter very
Yeah.
much, and that whole process is something that a lot of artists and creative types struggle to get into, and once they get into, they want to stay there. And it happens a lot more often for athletes and anybody doing physical activity because adrenaline causes an initial reaction to it. Um, and I know It's really fun to keep fighting for a very long time, and when you're in that flow state, you want to keep doing it, and it's really awesome. The best thing that I've found, because I've been playing sports my entire life, is when you're in the flow state, if you recognize you're in that flow state, just pause for 30 seconds and breathe and find out if any part of your body aches, because it probably does, and then go get water, because you've been ignoring something. I don't know what it is, but it's something, and it happens. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's very tricky, and especially in Texas, that heat is very hard to compete with. Like everybody south of the Mason-Dixon line just needs to drink more water all the time when you play Amp Guard because it's just hot. I mean, Florida, I
Yeah.
know there's water in the air around you, but still drink more water. It's hot.
Okay. Yeah, because breathing the water does not help hydrate you.
No, it's mostly called pneumonia, and that doesn't help anybody. Um, all right, so let's go over specifically what is the color class. Like you've talked a little bit about what you did to get your Paragon color and what you do in your role, but what is your read on what the color class is?
So, according to the rules of play, the color class is a non combat class that just brings color and life to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how I've described color class since I was playing in the 90s in V6. Granted, it's Amtgard adjacent, but close enough that
Mm-hmm.
I mean it bleeds over. It was the same rule book for decades.
For a while,
Um,
yes.
yeah, until V7, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, basically. Um, so the rules of play say it's a non-combat class. My read on it is a color class is literally anything that brings life and color to the game,
Mm-hmm.
which means the warlord in his full regalia with fighting company colors and the matching everything and all of that jazz is color.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we strip away the garb, we strip away the fighting companies, we strip away the banners, we strip away the names, we're just a nerf combat sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be played the same way in tunics as it would be in people in jerseys and athletic gear.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is color class.
Okay.
But color class is that kind of focused, I'm bringing atmosphere to
Mm-hmm.
the game. So it's not just a bunch of people dressing up hitting each other with swords, but it really transports us into a new dimension, into a new realm.
Would you consider NPCs during like quest battle game hybrids or quests to be a color class?
Yes.
Okay. That's I completely agree with that read. It's bringing color to the class, bringing life and color to the game
It
specifically to
makes
do that.
it makes us less sport and more live action role play storytelling
Mm-hmm.
RPG.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Um, what do you consider the difference between an average color and a paragon color? How do you make that jump? Because there's no levels in color. It's just one color. How do you jump from being a color to a paragon color?
Um, the hardest question in the world. I guess it's Paragon color is never something I ever saw or looked at or looked for or strived for. I just did my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my thing in a way that was as creative and in keeping with the storyline. What's the word I'm looking for? Atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
world that we have collectively built, that we build every single time we meet together.
Mm-hmm.
In that way is possible. The character Katrisa Chacon that I portray whenever I do anything Amp was a waitress. She was a bar wench. So at 14, I'm playing a bar wench. Um, Inherited her father's tavern, and then when I ported over, I kind of did the hand wavium of magical realm doohickey, and I'm in a new place and having to start over. But she's got her business acumen and she's got her savvy. But what she knows best is not war, is not strategy, is not tactics. It's providing food and drink to those who need it
Mm-hmm.
when they need it, the moment they need it. And so when I hydrate, that's what I'm channeling.
We
And
saw.
so
Yeah.
so for me, the difference between color and Paragon color is that shift in mindset, is that you are, whatever action it is that you're performing, it's done through the lens of that character that you are portraying,
Hmm.
and that you're not really deviating from it. You're using it to build and compound on what you're doing.
Okay. Um, is that what you would also consider the separate line between doing Rose service work and doing color work? Is that character aspect?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that's the huge thing. Because I had so many people go, "Oh, well, that's just a service thing. Like, you should be a Master Rose and you should be a Flame Knight and not Paragon, because Paragon is for, affecting the battlefields."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay, great. Yes, that's exactly what the definition of Paragon is in the rules of play, is
Right.
that it's awarded to the class who exemplifies, it's awarded to the person who exemplifies their class on the field of battle.
Yes.
A sideline hydration color person who just sits on the lines and plays music or goes, hydrate, get your beer from the sidelines,
Right.
isn't affecting the battlefield.
Hmm.
The active hydration that I was doing, physically out on the field, looking at the meat grinder, stepping onto, Celestial Kingdom's Spring War field of 300 people
Hmm.
and reading the flow of that battle to know where it would be safe for me to interject myself, not just for me personally and not just for the water that I'm carrying, but also for the other players. And then watching our Paragon warriors and their 6 points of plate mail, layered chainmail, layered gambeson
Yeah.
craziness in Texas in spring,
Yep.
which is basically summer for everywhere else.
Hmm.
I mean, it affects the field of battle. Our battle games are able to go longer when there's active hydration.
Hmm.
So as a color class, I argued that I was affecting the field of battle somehow, and I was doing it to the best of the classes of the abilities of the class that I was portraying,
Hmm.
which was this non-combat lens on how do you keep players safe, how do you keep players continuing to have a good time,
Hmm.
and how do you keep the flow of the game going without any jarring breaks in the atmosphere of the story we're trying to tell.
Right. So that's a that is a way I
It's a very
haven't
long
heard it
answer.
described before from other kingdoms. Um, and I think that works. I think that's probably the most solid argument I've heard for why Paragon Color is separate from Rose work and just straight hydration and like being the hydrocrat or whatever else you want to call it, the watercrat, whatever. There's a distinct difference between it, and that is interacting with the battlefield. And that is
Yes,
what Paragons are asked to do, is they're asked to very much affect and interact with the battlefield. Um, being able to do that as a color and bring in water or additional hydration things. I know pickles were brought at Springmore at one point.
yes,
There's Gatorade, frozen popsicles, anything that helps bring down body temperature and or gives you electrolytes back. um, Always a good thing on the field. Knowing when and where to produce them, bring them out to the field, make them available, how to interact with it, that is a very distinct difference from just being the hydrocrat. It's also, it does require some skill, and it does utilize, in a sense, the power that you've decided you have as a color, because our game defines you as having nothing but role play. And if you
correct.
decide to put role play into it and you actually utilize your skills and look at the battlefield and make a change, that is utilizing your abilities, which are role play, straight up role play. So I think that is probably the best argument I've heard for why color is a class and not just a credit point or something
Attendance
like that.
credit, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and,
Um,
and I will admit, in my younger years, I very much was the, oh, color is the, you're just sitting on the sidelines and it means that you were here but you weren't really fighting and you can just sit and look pretty.
mhm.
And I've kind of changed my tune in terms of this kind of gradual growth that I've gone through from the days of me playing color and just kind of watching my child run around and play to he's looking really red in the face. It's really hot today. He
Hmm.
needs water, but he's having so much fun. So let me take him some water. Well, if I'm taking him water, I might as well take my husband water. Well, I might as well take our friend's water
Hmm.
to I'm at kingdom level going, there's 100 people out there, all who are looking red in the face, all who are starting to look sluggish. I should just take them water so that one, they can stay safe, but most importantly, they can keep playing and having fun.
Hmm. Right. Um, it's so okay. Here's the thing that I just made this connection literally just now that I had thought about before because we normally gloss over it in when you're talking about how battles go and warfare and everything like that. But there's legitimately a whole slew of people in regular or like medieval battle that their only job was to run around with water. And like they had the messengers that you needed to get tracks back and forth, they had scouts, they had a water crew, they had like all of these were legitimate things that had to happen in battle. And color is that opportunity to be that thing without actually interacting as a as
Combatant.
one of the combatant classes, right? Um, and a lot of those times, those people weren't armed. Like the water carriers and things, they didn't carry around weapons or shields or anything. They might have had a shield on their back or something, but they carried around water. That was their job. It's a lot of things to carry around, and they might bring people back to med bay or whatever. That's still the color class kind of interacting and taking that role, replicating real combat. Um, so
Molly Pitcher.
yeah.
Molly Pitcher is a true historical figure. She is the exactly what you said. I think it was Professor Trent. Shout out to you if you're watching this. Please correct me in the comments below. Um, from what I remember of him and I's conversation, she was a historical figure, I believe, in around the Civil War era, and she would hydrate the forces for her side. And I don't remember if she was Union. I think she was Union. I don't think she was Confederate.
Mhm.
But she would hydrate her side's troops.
That's, I mean, that's literally what you're doing. You're replicating combat. There's combat going on. People need water. You bring it. That's
Yep.
an actual role in combat. We are a fantasy LARP roleplay that puts Gambeson at a lower rate than leather, even though historically Gambeson was used 100% more than leather armor. Um, this has actually got some historical base, so we're gonna ignore arguments of just like color's not historical. It is.
It is. Hi.
It's there. Um, I very much like that argument, and I'm gonna use that.
Yes.
Uh, so one of our questions we have on here is why color class separate from peasant, and we kind of outlined it. The peasant actually has weapons they get to carry around.
Yes.
Um, where
Peasants are expected to affect combat
right.
in this very real, visceral way. In the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they're going to be your cannon fodder, they're going to be the throw numbers at it, they're going to be the I need a warm body to stand here
Mm-hmm.
and just delay them for as many heartbeats as you can manage to delay them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the color is it's that Molly picture. It's the extra eyes on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Um Recently, hi, we're gonna get into this topic. Here's the segue.
Mm-hmm.
Um Recently my kingdom got a lot of flack for the number of battle masters that they produced.
Like
Um
40
and
something.
yeah, in the 30s it was an obscene number of battle masters.
Would you guys did the same thing
Um,
that Polaris did? You recognized everyone from the beginning of time forward. Now
yep,
Polaris is like a sixth the age of CK because CK has been around for like 30 years. Um, so you have a lot more people to go through
yes,
to make that call. So I don't think it's a bad ratio. I think there was a lot of them, but I don't disagree with the fact that there is that many on in the history of CK. There's a lot of them. And you guys are
right,
also a big kingdom, so.
yes. But I bring it up because I was among the battle masters,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember that moment when the king called my name. he was doing all the battle masters, and I was like, okay, cool, I can kind of just, wait and listen for, the friends or the people that I had put forward to see if they're going to get theirs because I'm kind of excited.
Mhm.
And then once I hear the ones that I'm super important about, then I can just kind of tune out and listen for any other names that surprised me or whatever.
Mhm.
Clap at the appropriate times. And that was about it. And then I heard my name and I was like, what? Because I looked over what the requirements were for
Mhm.
Battle Master to make that argument. Yeah, I should get one because I'm a Paragon and my Paragon was for stuff done on the battlefield,
Mhm.
and that was one of the requirements. But as I looked into it, Battle Master, Knight of Battle has that tagline of that it's only for the base 10 classes
Mhm.
and Paladin and Anti-Paladin. Period.
Mhm.
Which excludes me as a color. And so I was like, okay. I argued it with a couple times. I debated with a couple of people. Really wonderful conversations, really wonderful debates. And I went, you know what? Maybe this isn't something that I should even think about. Because this is trying to give the combat prowess a
Mhm.
different way to go about it rather than the tournament wins.
Mhm.
And I don't have combat prowess. So yeah, it makes sense that I shouldn't be considered in the running for this, and I'm okay with that. And then my name was called, so I was like, "What?" And then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, "Well, but there is a prowess to reading the battlefield,
Mhm.
to knowing where it's safe for me to go in and interact, when it's safe for me to, pull someone out of the battlefield or nudge things around."
Mhm.
Um, before this, I had always put on non-combat position in that yes, I was out in the field, but if people targeted me, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm a color.
Mhm.
Don't take that spell, put it back in your spell slot. Here's your arrow back. Don't count me as a valid target because I'm not going to do anything that's going to hurt you. I'm
Mhm.
just going to watch you and give you water if you need it.
Mhm.
But now since getting this battle master, I'm like, well, I if he thinks I deserve it, then maybe I need to find a way to show that it is deserving.
Mhm.
And so I'm waiting for our kingdom's next kind of big shindig, which is hopefully Spring War 2022 kicks off, and I can do this kind of on the large scale.
Mhm.
The idea is for me to go in and hydrate, but be picked on a team, become a targetable,
Mhm.
a legit target, so that the other team can target me with spells and effects and weapons, and I will take my deaths and I will take my injuries,
Mhm.
but I just won't have weapons, and all I will do is water. And so then I need to start kind of stepping up my game and being like, I need to read the battle, not just where it's safe for me to go into, but
Mhm.
where are we getting flanked? Are they collapsing a center? Are they positioning themselves a certain way? Is there a specific player that is really giving ours trouble? Have I noticed that they can be countered by this other class? Who's playing that class? Can I direct them to go
Mhm.
and basically be an on field general,
Mhm.
which again, history would show that those were there.
Yep.
I don't know if that's something I can do in a way that uh, affects the outcome of the battle and sways it for the one team. So if I can't, I will return the battle master.
And I think
But
that's a
if I
very
can,
fair balance. Yeah, if you can. I mean,
if I can, I'm keeping it.
right. Uh, Reading the battlefield is probably one of the hardest in Amtgard. It's one of the hardest things to teach because classically it's taught in a classroom and it takes a lot of hours to watch battle after battle after battle after battle and figure out what things work, why they don't, and then you have to scale it ridiculously small down because Amtgard battles are tiny. We have skirmishes. We don't actually have real battles. We have skirmishes in the eyes of warfare. And then you have to calculate magic into it and everything else. And it's a legitimate difficult skill to learn. And understanding the battlefield alone, if you have that tactical eye, all the whole game opens up infinitely easier. And if you're playing that uh, getting water, running messages, playing a scout, directing like directing flanks and things like that, and actually doing it correctly, it is a giant just having a person like watching the battlefield and going, oh, our left flank is coming down, and need 3 over there or something like that, or not even knowing how many we need, just recognizing that our flank is weak, that is enough to often change the field's trajectory so that we end up with not getting crushed on that side. Yeah. Like if you know Delos is crushing the flank.
Yeah, I know you need so and so to stop him,
Right.
or
Like, where's Harry?
Where is Harry? He's playing a barbarian. Don't send the wizard after him. Yeah, and that's the next thing is, if you study actual warfare, they're going to give you all these tactics and scenarios and things that work on a much larger scale, but they don't deal, as you said, with magic. And so there's interplay between how the different classes interact, and one class can be a hard counter for another, but maybe not if that class that's being hard countered is played by so and so.
Right.
And so it's learning that and knowing how to do that, that's where I want to go. That's my next step in this Paragon journey, and the fact that now I'm a battle master for Paragon Color is that something that I can do? Is that something that I can learn? And is that something that I can figure out how to then teach others who want to emulate and do the same thing? Because that's the whole idea, is to make it live beyond me and to teach others. And if I can't do that, then I should just hand over my silver sash and be like, I'm done.
I don't know about the silver sash. The Paragon hood, you've definitely earned. The Battle Master, because it's got different definitions, is different.
Yeah. Okay. No, fair.
the effect that and we've been thrown into a very new kind of order with the Battle Master, because never before have we had Paragon legitimately rated as something within our ladders. So now we're looking at it, we're like, okay, so you can get a Paragon hood and it gets you your 8th, another one gets you your 9th, a third one gets you your 10th / master hood. That whole, like, a Paragon is essentially an 8th order of any other ladder award.
Yeah.
Your 2nd is a 9th and your 3rd is a 10th. That very much defines Paragon like we haven't had before, where it was a very loose genre of just like, it's a really good player that affects the field as a class. And then just
Good
like
job.
brush us off and go, all right, go make your own decisions. Now we're like, oh, it's an 8th order. It's at least an 8th order. If it's not, you're doing it wrong. Because now we have a legit ruling. Like it's got to be 8, 9, and 10. So the effect of the Paragon on the field is now much more quantifiable than it was before. And if you're, because I've seen you at Spring War before, I've been to Texas a couple times. The effect on the field of people being able to fight and have, like, I think it was you and Fish.
Yes,
Fish a while ago
was one of my high. Yeah, that year it was me and Fish and Belladonna and Azul, and I had a rotating cast of characters that they would play on the field and then be like, I'm tired, but I still want to interact.
Right.
And so they'd be able to just kind of walk and go at their own speed while delivering water.
And it was wagons of water, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. We had the water wagon.
It's 100% great idea. Worked really well. Because I believe that was the year. Yeah, that had to be the year that Michael was Warocrat and I was helping him out. So I was actually watching the field more than actually participating.
Yes.
But you do make a difference on the field. And people can say you're not making a battlefield, you're not making a field, you're not making an effect using abilities, which you are making an effect using the roleplay ability and your own logic, which takes a large chunk of what Paragon is your ability to read the battlefield and use it. And like, it's still being used. It's just being used in a way that we normally don't anticipate it, because amp guiders like rules, and we like figuring out how to make them the best for us. And sometimes that's not good. But
no comment.
Yeah, I mean, half of this podcast is about like, hey, so there's a weird rule you can exploit. here it is.
Okay, fair.
Um,
Hi, there's
there,
this weird rule you can exploit with color in that you can't get targeted by things because you're technically not in combat.
I mean, I guess that works.
I mean,
It depends how you want to read, how the Reeve wants to read it, kind
yeah,
of.
yeah. I did participate as a color class in a combat situation,
Mm-hmm.
which was so much fun. It was the event that I was given my Paragon. It was the last time I think that CK had guild masters of the individual classes at the kingdom level.
Mm-hmm.
We now only have just guild master of Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
But after that reign, we voted in to get rid of guildmaster color, guildmaster warrior, guildmaster peasant, all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just to kind of streamline things down and have less to vote on an all thing every
Yes.
6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the idea behind a battle game was GMs and paragons versus the world.
Oh.
And so, they were all lining up, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna actively hydrate this one. But at the beginning of the reign, the monarch, this was the reign where we had like monarch turnover craziness.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was that reign. Um, the first monarch of that reign made a relic for me and gave me abilities that said that if I was ever in my hydration station, that I would have unlimited mends. And so people could come over to my hydration station, get a drink, and get equipment fixed because most color classes are also our ANS crafters.
Mm-hmm.
And so most colors make weapons, make armor, make garb. So they're very good at mending those things that break.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the combat effect to simulate that most colors are also crafters.
Mm-hmm.
So we go into this battlefield and yeah, everyone's lining up and I'm getting ready to hydrate and they're getting ready to be like, okay, don't forget colors here. So, don't hit her and don't target her and she's going to hydrate. And I went, this is James versus the world. I never got a chance to use my battle ability because, like 3 weeks later, the monarch kind of imploded. So, I really want to do this. Can I count as a hydration station and can I be on this team and can I actively hydrate just this team? And the Reeve went, do you have water on you right now? And I pulled out 2 water bottles full, hadn't opened them. I was like, yes, they're right here. He's like, and I could see the look on his face of I'm going to regret this later. Fine. Guys, she's on the GMs and Paragon's teams. Target away. I was like, and I got unlimited mends, which is one of the very few spells that I actually remember the incant for without having to look it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I parked myself right behind our front line, which was the guildmaster of Paladin
Mm-hmm.
and Paragon Paladin, and then the warrior, and then the barbarian, all of whom were in 2 points armor plus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just hanging on to them, chanting, I'm in this armor, I'm in this armor, I'm in this. And I just moved my hand every so often and try to keep up with where it looked like they were getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time the line faltered and really cracked was when the enemy team managed to get a person around using teleport or peasants sneaking around and
Mm-hmm.
us just kind of ignoring them and taking out the back line and me. So that way, suddenly they could do damage to the armor and they could get through them and kill them. And I was like, that was so much fun, guys. So, like, I did get to do some combat-y stuff, sort of,
I mean,
kind of.
it's an interesting idea. The relic. I do. So mend is one of those weird ones that is good if you have a lot of them. It also is a lot less beneficial if you don't have swift. So like
Right.
it's a lot of words for 1 point back. And I do really like the idea of like colors having the ability to be at respawn and acting like a full support. Like the you literally come back to them and instead of doing the whole 60-second you wait at base, repair your stuff thing, you just hand it to a color and the color mends it back up and fixes it for you and gives it back.
Yeah.
That's a really
And it's
cool.
and going back to, the conversation of the battlefield hydration Molly
Mm-hmm.
Pitcher, there was battlefield blacksmith
Mm-hmm.
and armor smith
Yep.
and that would sit there and, be mending armor, mending shields, making new ones. And so, oh, my shield broke. Okay, here's a new one. I'll go fix this one.
Mm-hmm.
Hi,
It,
we could do that too.
yeah. I
That sounds like
it,
fun.
it's got a lot of potential to if we transition color into a legitimate
Hmm.
class where it
Into
actually has abilities.
I don't want to say legitimate class,
Right, right.
into a viable combat
Yeah.
class.
One of the more, instead of being one of the,
Pat, you were here. Congratulations.
yeah, like extra class, because there's three classes that we currently have, four classes I guess, that kind of are just credit points. Like they don't do a lot. Like
Hmm.
monster is all up to the Reeves discretion if you're allowed to
Discretion.
play monster at all. Peasant never gains any abilities. Color was invented to just keep track of points, and then uh Reeve doesn't
Reeve.
get you any more power as you take credits in it.
Yeah.
You are still the ultimate power as soon as you are Reeve. um
Congratulations. You're still a level 1 god.
you
You
have the
can
knife
smite us
hand of
all.
death. um
And yet we have a Paragon Reeve.
I think that's another thing that I will have on the Paragon Reeve episode, but it is uh it's a service thing that has flavor, which makes it something different.
Yeah. And and it takes a lot of skill to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different kinds. You know what? That's a conversation for
Yeah,
the
that's
Reeve
it. It
one.
We've got a whole episode for that one later.
Yeah, we have. Be sure you have my husband on that one.
Okay. Um so I lost my train of thought. It exploded.
Sorry.
We'll go back. No, we're fine. We'll go back to the questions. Because we've been wandering for a little bit. So
We happen.
you started playing color uh kind of when you joined, which you said was about 6-ish years ago.
Yes.
When you started, or you kind of realized you were going to start this Paragon path, not quite Paragon path, but like you were going to do more of the color stuff, because you said you didn't really strive for Paragon. What were three things that you wish you knew when you started kind of on the color path?
Um, I don't. Oh, that. Oh, I don't. Um. Here's the thing: is I didn't. Unlike the other classes,
Hmm.
where the Paragon is kind of part and partial. That's the one thing that you can always strive for. It's in the rule book without any kind of mental acrobatics in terms of, well, you can affect the battlefield this
Hmm.
way, kind of thing, which is how we started the conversation
Yep.
today. Um, it's I didn't strive to be a paragon. It landed in my lap. It was a complete shock. I had no idea that it was coming to me. I
Hmm.
had no idea what it meant after it was handed to me. And I saw it as, well, now I can use this and kind of educate people on what color could be, and help others kind of define for themselves what color is.
Hmm.
Um, so
So
when I
what if we
started,
reword the question?
okay,
What if we go, if
sorry.
you have a new baby color in front of you that they want to achieve Paragon color, what are three things you're going to tell them to strive for?
Okay, this I can answer because I actually do have um basically anyone who's wearing a rainbow-ish colored sash has probably been influenced by me in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And are probably trying to strive or have already achieved Paragon color in their kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie, we love you. We miss you. Sorry that you're not here.
Yeah.
Uh, rip her internet.
Darn
But what I've told
Ontario.
them, Santa. It was from the pre-show. We'll put that in the bloopers at the end. I'm editing for you in my head.
Great. I don't do much editing. It just kind of, I'm just like, it's the show. Throw some caps on the end and we're good.
Goodness. So none of this is getting it. Oh wow. Okay.
It's all
Uh,
goes through.
oh, no, but what I've told them is color, unlike warrior, unlike scout, unlike barbarian, unlike monk, that have these kind of battlefield roles already kind of built into the core of what it means to be that class.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you put on that purple sash or that red sash, people are going to expect certain things from your play style. with color, you're anything you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a battlefield color, then you've got to find a way to safely, for yourself and everyone around you, interact with the battlefield. You've got to negotiate with the Reeves to make sure that it's going to fit within the scope and feel of the game that they're trying to run and use for that particular day.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to know when they go, that really won't work, to step back and go, okay, no problem, and let your role play, let your character be in service to the story that they're trying to tell and the fun that they're trying to give others.
Mm-hmm.
So have fun, do what makes you happy,
Mm-hmm.
because the other classes are doing that. The person who Paragon's Bard probably went on that path because they really liked Bard
Mm-hmm.
and they don't like Barbarian or they don't like Warrior or whatever. They don't like the style that that class gives them. And so color's no different. Find the thing that you like. Find the thing that gives you joy when you step on the field to do whatever it is you're going to do. And then just do it unapologetically, because that warrior in 6 points of plate mail crashing through the front line is doing so unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wrecked your face. Not sorry.
I mean, if they hit you in the head, they should be a little sorry. But
Yes, I
if
mean
they're
within
if
reason.
yeah, if they've got more points of armor than you and they have a decent stick, they're going to probably go through you. It's very
Yep.
hard to stop them.
Yeah, they're gonna wreck your face.
Um,
Then they won't apologize for wrecking your face. They're gonna be like, "Get good, son."
no, I mean they don't have time. They've got to kill the next person, and then the next
They've got
person,
to
and the
wreck
next
more
person.
face. Yeah.
They their job. They keep going. Okay, three
So
things.
yeah. Oh, so that was one. Oh
That was
God, I
one.
need to come up
Was
with two more.
one. I mean, you don't have to come up with two more. We could live. We
Um,
could sit with that.
I mean, okay, so find the thing that you love. Do
Mm-hmm.
that. Do it unapologetically. Remember that the color class, regardless of how it's people see it,
Mm-hmm.
the rule book defines it as the thing that brings life and color to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is that you're doing, it should bring life, beauty, color to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that word beauty isn't, oh, it always has to look beautiful and you have to have the best makeup. And
Mm-hmm.
no, you could be an ugly, dingy troll. Like,
Mm-hmm.
cover yourself in mud and you know,
Yeah.
there's beauty in that,
Mm-hmm.
because that ugliness that you're portraying, if you portray it to the point where you get that immediate knee jerk repulsion from the people around you, that's amazing acting.
Mm-hmm.
That's There's beauty to be found in that. And the juxtaposition of that against, the fairy that is all sparkles and bright colors and chiming bells, it makes that look so much more
Mm-hmm.
for having the dinge. So, you know, make it beautiful, make it
Mm-hmm.
bring life. Um, I guess the last thing would be, you don't need to put an effect on to play your character.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have an accent. You don't have to change the way you speak. I've been playing Katrisa Chacon for 30 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she was a different person than I was when I created her back in high school. But through her, I gained my own personal sense of self worth and strength and comfort in handling things. And so when in my real life I come up to a situation that makes me feel uncomfortable, I don't face it as myself. I face it as Katrisa, because she's stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't have to make that character such a huge departure from yourself that you can't draw on the strength of that character when you need it in your real life, and let that happen,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. Let the strength of who you are in your real life propagate down into the character that you're playing. I ended up right after high school being a waitress at a cocktail bar with a tray,
Mm-hmm.
running beers out to drunk people, making sure that they didn't get too drunk. And when they did, I would tell my bouncer and he would politely escort them out. And it's really no different than watching out for people with hydration. And if someone's getting too rowdy or not taking care of themselves or looking injured, I either ask them to step off the field with me. And if they refuse or don't want to listen, I tell the Reeve and the Reeve will
Mm-hmm.
do it. Art mimics life, life mimics art,
Mm-hmm.
and color class is one of the best places to play with that.
Mm-hmm. It's
I
a
guess those are my three things.
that works very well. It was awesome. It's a very free class because there is no, like, all the other classes are like, all right, so this is kind of where it fits, but you can be outside of the box a little bit or inside the box. Like, they give a guideline, but it's not super specific.
Right.
Color is just like, we don't have walls. Just
We don't have walls. There's
pick
no
your stuff.
lines to color inside of. Have
Right.
fun. Here's the crayon box and the markers and the highlighters and the pencil colors and the paints and the sparkles and the glitter and the glue and the have fun.
Everything else, just go.
Just go. Just do it.
Um, yeah, I really like those. Those are very, I think those are excellent recommendations and guidance for new colors coming into the game, or that want to start the Paragon path towards color.
In so far as that you're trying to get the Paragon path through affecting combat.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that there's other kingdoms that award their paragons for service aspect things. And while yes, the hydration that I did could be considered a form of service, and that's really what I was kind of was my focus was to keep people playing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my shift is my focus is shifted just slightly to try to make it more combat oriented because of the aforementioned battle master.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for those colors that are trying to do battle pathy kind of things with color, that first thing of you know finding where you're going to fit on the battlefield and talking to the Reeve and being open about it applies. Um, the other things is all colors in general,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of it.
Right, because each kingdom is going to identify what a paragon color is, kind of in their own terms,
Yes.
which is partially why we have different kingdoms. They have the availability to have their own ideas about
Sure.
certain standards, things like that. And as color, paragon color specifically is more controversial in different kingdoms than it is in other locations, or it's just completely like, some kingdoms will not recognize it. Other kingdoms
Yeah.
are discussing it. CK has recognized it. Nine Blades has recognized it. I want to say there's another one.
Neverwinter, I think.
Has Neverwinter done it
Although
too?
I okay, I was talking with a couple monarchs throughout the past several years since getting my color paragon
Mm-hmm.
about people that I had heard and been interacting with for paragon color. And the first conversation I had with the first monarch, the feedback was color paragon. That's another thing. To
Mm-hmm.
just recently the current monarch, current the one that just happened. I don't remember my time frame. It's been a long summer.
It has been. Mm-hmm.
uh, COVID.
Yeah.
Um, we'll just blame that. Um, that's what I do with my students.
I mean, teaching is rough right now.
Mm.
That's you got a lot of stress on you for that.
Okay. Yeah. No. So hit that the current-ish monarch at Neverwinter.
Mm-hmm.
When speaking about Paragon Color, the conversation was much more. I want to find out how it fits in the kingdom, and it's definitely something I want to
Mm-hmm.
recognize. But I want to make sure it's the right person. And so, there's definitely turnaround in kingdoms that historically were no, that's not a thing. What are you talking
Mm-hmm.
about? Get out of here. So, I mean, that's good
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean,
from my
it's
standpoint, anyway.
yeah, it's one of those things that is contained within the rules if you read them a certain way, and
Mm,
that's what people traditionally call gray areas, and all kingdoms identify gray areas differently.
yeah.
Polaris likes to find gray areas and then not make them gray areas anymore by defining them very specifically in Archipora. Other kingdoms I know just go meh and then keep going. And it depends on which kingdom you're from, how your meta slash politics work. That's a very broad area, but
Mm.
if you're going for it, I'd talk with your monarchy about what their perception of it is. Uh,
You want to know the amount of times I talked to my monarchy about what I was doing with color on the field?
Zero time. I mean, obviously somebody wanted to give it to you. They did,
Yeah.
and they have a precedent for it now, and
Yes.
that means that it's going to be easier to hand out. It's much harder to hand out the first one than it is to hand out the second, the
The
third, the
second one.
fourth.
Agreed, agreed. But
Hmm.
if you find yourself in the kingdom where colors are just like, oh, that's the girls' class, or that's the non-fighters class, or that's just,
Hmm.
oh, because you were just here, it's attendance credit, it doesn't mean anything. But you want it to mean something. Then those three things that I mentioned, the big one being find the thing that you love and do it unapologetically.
Hmm.
That was literally the path that I took when I decided I was going to hydrate the kingdom level. Was in response to the way I saw hydration being run,
Hmm.
which was older players who would sit, well, my chair's about to fall, like
Hmm.
in the shade, fanning, talking, get some water.
Hmm.
And, you know, I had been on my home field actively hydrating my home park, and sawing that just made me go, that's not how this should work.
Right.
It could be better.
Hmm.
And so I went, hi, can I set up my water station near you? And they're like, sure. Whipped out my table, whipped out my igloo, filled everything up, and walked out to the field. And I remember distinctly hearing behind me them go, what is she doing? Why is she going on the field? Someone's going to hit her.
I mean, that's the
Like,
risk you take when you get on the field, but like,
I'm wayward.
right.
I grew up in this game. I used to fight in V6,
Hmm.
but I used to fight. I played a barbarian and I played a scout and a warrior and a sword. No, I didn't play monk. I played monk recently. Monster class, unicorn,
Hmm.
bard, druid. Like,
Hmm.
I played. I got hit.
Hmm.
I know how to take my hit. I'm not afraid. And so I went out and I actively hydrated.
Hmm.
And the days of drop a case of water bottles on a table or in the grass and be like, there's some water, get it when you're thirsty, and then it never gets spoken of again, are all but gone in my kingdom
That's
and
good.
replaced now with people actively looking to hydrate.
Hmm.
Bids now, autocrats are now seeking me out and going, we'd like to get a hydration bid going.
Hmm.
Can you hydrocrat this event? If you can't, can you get some people that you would recommend to say yes and sign on? Will you be on standby if they've got any questions or concerns? Can you mentor? Can you,
Hmm.
so these are all positives, especially in Texas where the sun is actively trying to kill you.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yes. All over Texas. I mean, some parts of Texas are hotter than other parts of Texas, but that
Yeah,
doesn't matter. It's all hot. All of it is
hot.
hot.
We hot.
Um, it, it there's a lot of hot states, and they all need more water.
Yes.
Um.
So yeah, if you're in a kingdom where the colors are pushed aside,
Hmm.
and you want them not to be pushed aside, then just do it. And you know, people are gonna stand up and take notice, especially if you're just doing it with a smile. You're doing it because you love it, and you don't really care whether or not they recognize you for it. You're doing it because that's how you want to play this game.
Hmm.
And maybe someday they'll change their minds.
Maybe.
See, before me, the last Paragon Color in CK was like 20 something years ago. It was 2 decades between me and the Paragon before me.
It would have been a master color at that point.
Yeah, it would have been Master Color.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't
everything
know
before
who it was.
V8 was master. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, and I don't know what it was for, but I do know that afterwards, when I was, looking at my award and kind of going, "Whoa," it was like this. And then the Golden Dragon also for that
Hmm.
was decades between, and now these have been handed out a bit more frequently. So you can be the change.
Right.
So if you want something to change, just do it.
Hmm.
Do it because
Um.
you love it.
So You did a lot of, we've been talking about it very much, very commonly right now, the hydration, and you started on smaller fields and you moved to larger fields. Um, in general, in hydration and in any combat color, uh, how do you make changes when the field size changes?
So for hydration,
Mm-hmm.
um, definitely getting others to hydrate with you when the field gets big is the biggest change. When it's a small field of, 15, 20 players, I can do it by myself. I run out with water and, give people a drink and
Mm-hmm.
then circle back and wait a couple minutes, watch a couple throws, then circle back around and repeat, rinse and repeat. Spring War, when the team sizes are 100,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you've got the meat grinder in the very center where literally there's 100 plus people
Mm-hmm.
in a 100-foot radius area fighting basically constantly.
Mm-hmm.
It it changes. You kind of circle the field in kind of this spiral where you kind of dip toward the center and you're kind of orbiting,
Mm-hmm.
and having two people kind of orbiting opposite each other so that the hydration people never get too close to each other. They're always almost opposite the fields each other,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of moving back and forth was one of the big changes that I made. Um, Originally, I had spoken of the tray with the shot glasses and everyone taking shots. And as the field sizes got bigger, I switched to sports bottles,
Mm-hmm.
very much like sideline NFL, where you squirt it through the helmet slats and then they run back on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was a huge change. And the conversation now, one of my pages, also trying to follow in the footsteps of Combat Color, trying to do hydration. She's playing with this idea of almost like a backpack camel thing,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of the camel where you kind of slurp the water on your own, having squirt guns like a
Ah,
bar tap
yeah.
bartender where you squirt, having one of those and dual wielding water. So she literally walks by and can and hydrate two, three people at a time.
I
I
like
had
that.
no idea how that would work. She brought this to me and I went,
Do
that is one of the best ideas I've ever heard.
do
Do
it.
it.
I don't know how to do it, but do it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to. I guess you start at grabbing one of those camel backpack things,
Uh,
and then the
yeah.
bartender keg things, and you see how to splice them together. And I don't know, but
I mean,
I
there's
mean,
yeah, you're gonna have to play with a lot of things, but that's essentially like advancing your equipment. It's the same thing as any of the armored classes modifying their armors to be better for
no,
them.
it's no, no, no. It's less modifying the armor. This shift is very much the thick wall PVC, carpet foam, duct tape days to kite spar PVC.
Mm-hmm.
It's that shift in technology that she's already talking about
Mm-hmm.
for hydration,
Right.
active hydration on the field, and it is so exciting the fact that she thought of this, and I was and she came to me going, "Do you think this is a good idea?" I'm like, "Of course it's a good idea. Go do it
So,
before I steal." I'm kidding.
Huggy at Keep this year brought a little handheld drill that had an attachment that turned it into a fan, like a real high powered little air blower, and that was fantastic. Uh,
Ah,
I'm betting like handheld air pumps would allow you to pressurize the bag of
the
water
water.
and then allow you to squirt it out through a hose of some kind. And that just requires a chargeable battery. Like that's not it's expensive because you're
Yeah,
getting a chargeable drill or air pressure pump or whatever. So that's not that cheap, but it's still
yeah.
an option. Uh
Well, I mean, if we compare that to, a Smiley Foamworks sword that runs what, 50, $60.
mhm.
Um, and then you compare that to plate mail, which can run in the thousands.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, what's a couple $100 for a really great hydration system?
That's also repetitively reusable and doesn't have to be fixed and oiled every single time.
Mm. It'll break down.
I mean,
I mean, but so do weapons, so does
right.
armor.
It'll break
I
down a
mean,
lot
it's our
slower.
kit.
Right.
And it's our kit. It's if you're talking about class kits, the wizards have their spell balls and
Hmm.
their strips, and warriors have their armor and their swords and their shields, and hydration combat colors will have rechargeable battery, high powered super soakers.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
guess. Yeah, sure. Whatever works.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Whatever works. Yeah.
um,
Uh, I'm excited.
okay, so on the smaller fields, you're mostly doing it by yourself, trying to balance things out. Larger fields, you need more assistance, and then you try to organize better. Kind of a summary of what we just went over. Um, are there any mistakes that either you made or you saw other people make and things like that that you think people should avoid if they're trying to take the Paragon path towards color?
Okay, in terms of hydration, some big mistakes would be overhydrating.
Hmm.
I know that sounds weird in the you need to drink more water because the sun is trying to kill you
Hmm.
conversation, but there is a thing of bloat, especially if you're doing active hydration and it's happening in the middle of a combat. You don't want them to get a belly full of water and then try to run and slosh around. They're gonna vomit, and that's gonna dehydrate them faster and make it
Hmm.
worse.
Hmm.
And so you need to help them moderate their drinking basically and limit it to, a mouthful or two
Hmm.
during combat. And after the fighting's over, they can go to the hydration station and they can guzzle a bottle of water, which their body will desperately need by then, and get a good 8 and
Hmm.
16 ounces at one go. But
Right.
they should not have more than 4 ounces at a time, like
Hmm.
half a cup at a time during active combat.
Hmm.
And I know that I may have overhydrated a few people kind of in the early days.
It's it's
I
a
mean, I didn't know what I was doing.
right, and so it's a weird skill that if there I've been learning very rapidly, which is, I mean, more recently I've been learning that amp guard combat is so similar to a sport in a lot of aspects, but that if you didn't have that background of sports, you don't learn all these things. Like intrinsically, I know I can't drink an entire bottle of water right in the middle of combat. That's not good for me. I
Or right
know,
before.
like the yeah, right, the stretching, the like what I can and can't eat, what foods and things like that, different ways to like react and feel like a bunch of these things that you learn naturally through playing a bunch of sports over years and years and years and years. We have to like quickly train our people because we're like, all right, we're gonna put you in 60 pounds of armor. You're gonna go sprint at that dude, and you're gonna try to hit him with a stick. And they've never done anything like that before, and it's terrible because they feel bad afterwards. And it's like, oh, why? Because they didn't pace themselves, they didn't stretch, they let the adrenaline get the best of them. They're like, I can run in 60 pounds of armor unless you
Yeah,
trained for it.
I'm currently hitting the gym and trying to rebuild endurance. I spent the last 6 years working on a PhD, which means my days would be spent coming home from work, eating quickly with family, and then sitting at my computer for 4 more hours, pouring
Yeah,
through to try to figure out what I was even talking about half the time. Um,
it's a
so
PhD in education.
it's a PhD in education, yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's and
Um,
it's also one of the few ones that come with the tag of you have to keep it up. Like
yes.
your teaching license, you have to teach. My mom was she had a master's degree in education after getting two other degrees in different things, then realizing teaching was her calling. Uh,
Not familiar at all.
it's
Called out.
it's a lot of work, but that work ethic mentality behind it of like, I gotta get this done. And especially when you actually get handed your own classroom, you don't have someone watching over you the whole time. You are the person in charge.
You're the
Like you,
Reeve.
yeah, yes. And
You're the Reeve and the Monarch at the same time, and the Chancellor, and
doing
the
all of it.
Bard, and the Court Jester, and the Knight, and yeah, all at the same
Hmm.
time.
And that work ethic and that mentality of like, go, will get you far in Amp Guard as well. It'll also get you far in real life. They very often are, I mean, if you go look at the successful amp guarders, like they have multiple belts, they do a lot of things, they have a lot of awards. They often also have a successful work life behind it because that work ethic crosses over, and it's not just I play hard, I work hard. It's a whole lifestyle behind it.
Yeah, but I'm in the process now that I have, you know, energy again
Hmm.
because I'm not doing 20-hour days
Yeah.
of constant thinking. I'm starting to work out again so that I can be more active on the field and see about doing that combat color that we talked about at the kind of
Hmm.
the onset of the conversation. But yeah, definitely we're a sport, and if I hadn't done some sports in junior high, if I hadn't been on a roller derby team, if I hadn't gone through education and tried to figure this stuff out, I know that I would hurt myself. I
Hmm.
have hurt myself in spring wars. Yeah, don't that's the next thing is don't overdo yourself either if you're actively hydrating
Hmm.
a field of 300 people by yourself. And then doing the Friday night beer pong tournament and hydrating that too because we want them to be able to play again the next day
Hmm.
and not hungover. And hungover is basically just dehydration. So you then have to switch gears to convincing people to drink a little bit of water
Hmm.
so that they don't overdo it in the middle of combat, to drinking any amount of water because,
Hmm.
dear God, we don't want you this drunk and hungover the next day. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and again, turns those days into, getting up at 6 or 7 in the morning to run into town to get breakfast for you and your camp
Hmm.
and fresh ice and if you run out of pickles or grapes or oranges or any of those other
Hmm.
things, loading all that back up, bringing it all back to field, delivering breakfast, eating breakfast yourself, maybe.
Hmm.
Yes, you should do that. And remembering to do that is very difficult.
Hmm.
Um, and then resetting up the hydration station from the night before because you have to leave on spring war because there's midnight ditching that happens until
Hmm.
like 4 in the morning.
Yep.
Um, you have to leave the hydration station open.
Hmm.
And I tried to hydrate those midnight ditches and quickly found I could not keep up with it. So, eh,
They're big.
yeah, they're big. And after a full day of hydrating, a meat grinder,
Hmm.
and then catching a small break for dinner, and then hydrating the drinking games or carnival or whatever's happening that
Hmm.
night, and then trying to hydrate the midnight ditch field by yourself. Yeah, my ankles were super swollen. I had to take a couple days off of work the following week because I could not walk.
Yep.
My husband was very upset with me that I was taking care of everyone else and not myself.
Yep. Take care of yourself. Uh,
Yeah, because we're a bunch of nerds and we don't know how to take care of ourselves.
no, we're terrible at it.
We're really bad.
We are.
So tell you what, I'll take care of you guys with the hydration if you guys will remind me to like sit down every once in a
I
while.
mean, I would demand anytime I'm a hydrocrat that I get a cart because that just, especially at the old Spring War site,
Uh huh.
you definitely needed a cart to get up and down that hill like
Yes.
9 times in a day, unless you were, military trained and running all the time.
Yeah, I ended up demanding that I be allowed to keep my truck
Hmm.
field side.
Yeah.
They were starting to tow people that were field side,
Hmm.
that weren't with handicap placards, and I was one of the few. And I remember people go, Why does she get her truck?" And I'm like, "I'm giving you water, and the hydration station is literally the bed of my truck. Come at me,
Safety, like
safety.
that's.
Do you want to drink water? Yes, good,
You want to be alive at the end of this? Awesome. Truck stays.
awesome. My truck stays here."
Yeah, that's yeah. Take care of yourself.
Yep.
I think the other aspect of that is don't be afraid to fight for the tools you need
Yes.
so
Oh,
that
that
you
was a huge
have
thing.
them.
Yeah, that was a huge thing. The first several kingdom level hydrations were out of my own pocket
Hmm.
to the tune of about $250
Hmm.
for a weekend.
Yeah.
Spring War was more than that.
Yeah, I would
And
imagine. I've seen
yeah,
Spring Wars budget. It's
it's
stupid big.
slightly insane,
Yeah.
but it's where Kingdom makes their money. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So COVID with no Spring War really hurt the coffers. Hang on,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the color girl thing. I'm sorry, I'm a little shiny.
You're
There we go.
good.
There you go. That's better. I'm starting to be able to see my face. Um, yeah, so you definitely fight for the tools that you need,
Hmm.
especially if you're gonna do hydration. It's not cheap, um, and the crats can find the budget for it. Um, it can go out of the war budget,
Hmm.
So the war crat does not need $2,000 for a shiny new castle. They can make do with, $1,500 and they can give 500 of it to have a really great hydration station that'll
Hmm.
cover all the ice, all the water, ice chests, igloos, and those ice chests and igloo things are totally reusable.
Hmm.
Um, the consumables,
They don't add
great.
up. I mean, the consumables don't add up to be that much. Once you get the initial materials, like the igloos,
Yeah,
the tables, any like
the
um
sports bottles that you're going to
yeah,
use.
all that
If
stuff.
you,
It lasts for a while. I mean,
yeah,
at least 2 or 3
take care of
years.
it. If you
Yeah.
take care of it,
Hmm.
don't let it get moldy in storage.
No,
I'm not staring at anyone in particular that may have cost me a few igloos to black mold in
like
storage.
a spray bottle with like an ounce of bleach and the rest water. Just spray it in the igloo, and it.
And let it dry
Yeah.
before you close it and put it in storage
Right.
is all that needs to
Yeah.
happen.
It's not much. It's not much.
It's
It
what
is. It is a trick to know how much cleaning things you can put into them, depending if they're just like the ice igloos where you're putting in ice and water and stuff like that. You can just like slosh bleach around it there and then like dry it out, wipe it out, and you'll be fine.
you're good.
Uh, but let everything dry.
Completely, please.
Hmm.
For the love of God. Um, yeah. So the initial costs of, a table or a pavilion or your igloos, your things,
Hmm.
that gets pricey. And you can get donations, you can get, people want orders of the rose but don't want to actively do anything. Have them donate an igloo and give them an order of the rose. Like, done. Easy.
Also,
Because,
Springware's budget can afford a couple igloos.
yeah, no, and that's where I got most of my kingdom level supplies
Hmm.
was I had a couple spring wars where the autocrat really put in for me and said, tell me exactly what you need to make this the hydration station of your dreams.
Hmm.
And let me nickel and dime it down to where it still gives you what you want and what you need, but doesn't break the bank. And when I turned in my first one, I seriously, my husband was yelling at me. He was like, "No, add more. No, add more. Add more." And I'm like, "No, this is getting really pricey. It's like already $300. I don't think I can." He's like, "Add more." So I turned it in. It was like 600. They were like, "Oh yeah, we can do all of that." I was like,
Hmm. Yeah, as someone about to run an event, or I have a bid coming in for the event, and finding $1,000 for like hydration for the whole weekend is not that difficult. When you're like, I could cut 75 cents a head from one meal and then
mhm,
throw all of that money at hydration. You're like, oh look, there's like $600.
"There you go,
Magic. It's
magic."
it's accounting magic, and I mean, a lot of that is just knowledge, knowing if you've never run an event before, you've never really thought about all of the little things that need to go into it. Sometimes you need the hydrated crat to be like, hey, I need like $80 for pickles. I'm like, why pickles? Electrolytes.
Yeah, done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of, because there was another flip side to this, because I took that very hydration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't be afraid to fight for the things that you need in order to make your thing happen. So
Mm-hmm.
hydration we talked about. If you're doing color in terms of, I don't know, providing entertainment for court
Mm-hmm.
and you need, I don't know, flags to twirl or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's fight for that. If that's something you can't craft, something that you can't afford, but it's a service that you're going to provide over and over for the kingdom, maybe that's something you talk to the region about and be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, can you run an ANS and ask people to craft these certain things and donate for kingdom? Not only would they get recognition for their ANS and their crafting, but maybe, throw them a rose for the donation.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use that to spice up this.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the set dressers, even in
Hmm.
medieval times. The feastocrats didn't just handle the food, but they had to do the place settings, the table settings of the high
Hmm.
table. And I think, especially in CK, we've lost that pageantry somewhere along the way.
I mean, you guys have a
I
lot of mouths to feed,
Yeah, we do.
but uh, there is something to be said about even just getting some banners along the side, um, adding actual tablecloth, not like cloth tablecloth, like even plasticky throwaway ones that are like 99 cents or whatever.
Mhm.
They add a little bit of extra to it.
They
Oh,
make cleanup easier.
yes, they do. Oh, yes, 100%. And depending on if you have access to a large uh, if you have access to a laundromat that's going to be able to do it, you could do cloth ones. They're reusable over and over again. It really depends on how far you're willing to go. I know Sir Q-Ball made these giant 10-foot banners that have the Polaris heraldry on them, and they have white rose and red rose for when Michael did the War of the Roses theme. And we whip those out every once in a while when we want to be fancy. And just adding those two banners to a room make the whole room feel infinitely more Amp-Guardy.
Yeah, and you'll notice that people start acting
Mm-hmm.
differently. They start role playing again. They see the banners on the walls, they see that, and suddenly their imaginations revert to what we want them to be. And now they're not just in, some county or state parks, whatever feast hall. We're suddenly in Lord so and so's castle and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my lord, your warhound is a little feisty today. Yes, he is. Yep, 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 yep.
Just the
Which
little
is which is
things.
which is all of which is color. All of that is color.
Right.
So if if you're looking at this as a color class, and we've spent all this time talking about on field, battlefield, hydration, active stuff, and you're like, but I have a disability, or I I could get hurt easily, or I'm just intimidated by that many moving bodies
Mm-hmm.
in my general vicinity. There's nothing that says that you can't be that person that brings that life, color, and beauty back to our game.
Mm-hmm.
And in CK, I know that we could desperately use someone who spearhead that and bring that pageantry back consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Because we see it in spurts. The high table was nicely dressed. The past event that we went to,
Mm-hmm.
mid rain, not
Oh
too
yeah.
long ago. So it was very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And Spring War sometimes has nice stuff. The last one was nice, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, overall and in general, from what I remember it, in my youth to looking at now, I'm like, we could probably do better,
Mm-hmm.
but it's gonna take, you know, gonna take that person to do it unapologetically,
Mm-hmm. And push for it and organize things like that. And that's
and
uh
make people come to expect it. That's the thing, is changing people's expectations.
yes.
Because I think that was one of the biggest things that got the kingdom maybe to recognize that me as Paragon for hydration,
Mm-hmm.
was that I, working on the doctorate, doing this while working on the doctorate, um, I had to just not go to a couple events. It's just
Mm-hmm.
because I've got to knuckle down. I got to write this 100-page dissertation and
Yeah.
you know present here and talk to this person. I
Mm-hmm.
can't. Don't have the mental capacity to go to an event. And would show up late, and I would show up in civilian clothes, going, I'm just here to say hi.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really do anything else. And like, oh, thank God you're here. Do you have water? I'm like, no,
Not
I don't even
today.
have garb on. I'm sorry, I got nothing.
It is.
um
This is a hobby. Like it's a game. It's a hobby. We do have to recognize that this is a hobby and not be like, hey, so and so is willing to do this all the time. That doesn't work all the time.
yeah, you have to recognize that people sometimes need to step back from this,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to rest and recharge, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And but we gotta nurture what we have, and when we realize that that something is missing when one person is gone, you follow that person's legacy and keep them alive by, oh, that sounded so morbid. I didn't mean it that way.
No,
Keep
but
them,
keep that idea running. Keep the thing like it is.
yeah, that's what I meant
Uh,
by continuing it. God words.
I'm trying to think of a good example for it. Lady A is a good example. She's taking a break. Lady Armstrong is a really, really good crafter. She makes or garber. She makes amazing tunics. Um, and she recently had to go on break because one of her kids is entering college. Is like that's real life is first. This is a game. Uh, and she's now in Polaris, and one of our other members was like, "Well, I'm gonna step up and do it and make more tunics. Just try to like fill the gap of Lady A's
Exactly.
tunics." And it's not you have to do the exact same thing. You can
Yeah.
variate whatever, but
Make it your own. It has to be something you love.
right.
So if you're gonna step in and fill that void, you don't need to replicate what came before. Not in terms of the detail. Replicate the spirit in which it was done,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be just as successful.
Yes. Um. Okay, so we went over.
I'm looking at my notes too.
Yeah, we went over mistakes to avoid. We've already talked about like the battlefield, the roles where you kind of fit and what you do. Um, are there any skills that you want to get better at in or out of the game?
Yeah, we talked about it kind of at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
which was the tactician.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've been playing LARP, Amp adjacent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Armguard V6 under a different name, and then now some V7 and V8. Um, I've been doing this for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've been watching battle for at least a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I want to take those things that I've kind of just absorbed through passively watching, excuse me, and get better at being that tactician
Mm-hmm.
by recognizing when a flank is faltering, when a center is getting weak, and then recognizing the players, and being able to be like, okay, Dolan is playing his bard.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good at countering all of these things. What would give him trouble because he's on the other team,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to then see who's on my team and go, okay, I think these three people could slow him down at least long enough for us to do something. So you
Mm-hmm.
three go and deal with that. You two go over there. And if we're playing a game that has, a life pool or a respawn, where you have to wait for a certain number of people to respawn
Mm-hmm.
or to just kind of control that flow and be that traffic director, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's not something I've ever actually done actively. I
Mm-hmm.
may have, sat back in my armchair watching, oh, they really should have done this,
Mm-hmm.
or, talk to my husband after the fact and been like, so when that did this, do you think
Mm-hmm.
you could have, so and so should have done this instead? And,
Mm-hmm.
I've always just kind of sort of thought about it, but now it's time for me to try to actually do it and actually try to sway a battle.
It's I mean that first layer is recognizing like the lines and the shapes of battle.
Yeah.
That second layer is recognizing the classes because we kind of add like in historical battle that your classes are kind of just like footmen, cavalry, archers, and that's pretty much it.
That was
That's
it.
just what you got. We've got no cavalry. That'd be cool, but I really don't want to fight around a horse.
No.
Um, but we've got classes, so you look beyond that the shapes of battle to the classes, and then once you're looking at players, you're looking 3 layers deep and having to always keep track of what's going on. When you're starting to look at it and you're like, okay, I know that uh Diego is playing a scout and we don't have any other torches on our team. We need to shut him down magically because otherwise we need like 8 people to take care of his stick.
Yeah.
it's it's a problem. He's good. He's got armor that fits, and
Yeah.
he's going to move around a lot. So we've got to do something. When you start looking at that level, you're now recognizing you can see the skirmishes and the individual fights, but you can also see the greater size. And once you're doing that, adjusting the battle and figuring out what you need to do almost snaps into place. You kind of find the core of what's going on and who can do what and what can do what you need. And as you get better at it, you'll be able to feed back and forth of like, do I need a specific player to take care of this class or this player specifically, or do I need just a specific class, or is it a shade, and all that things like that. And that's just practice. I don't have any good answer for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really just me going out there and doing it.
Mhm,
And I've started. I am participating on my local field. I play one battle game a week, which
mhm,
is 100% more than I've ever played before. I'm playing monk right now because I have found that in the years my wrists have and hands have gotten really weak,
mhm,
and so using a sword and a shield after a few swings gets physically painful for my hands, and I
mhm,
can't do it. Same thing with bows. The gripping of it starts to hurt my wrists, and I
mhm,
can't do it for extended periods of time. I don't have the physical strength to throw things.
mhm,
You cannot see it, but I am 250 pounds of round tubbiness. So I don't run because it's like jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. Bonk. So yeah, the spear is something that right now I can physically manage.
mhm,
Uh, and the monk is one of the few classes that uses a spear.
mhm.
So,
And it's
you know,
uh I think that is something that our game has over a lot of other medium to high contact LARPs, is that we allow you to not necessarily have the physical abilities to like beat on someone, but still have the ability to play our game. I mean, we literally, a bard and wizard can both walk on the field with nothing and still
nothing.
be hyper effective
Yeah,
because they just have to
yeah,
yell at people.
they do. I've got a bard build, which is like 20 something shoves
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and like almost nothing else. It's like I just dumped
Shoves,
all my points into shove. I think
shoves,
I've got shove and
awes,
I've got a maw.
terrors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's all I've got
Mm-hmm.
is that particular bard build. And you know, I don't need a weapon. I don't need to swing at you, but
Right.
I'm also once you get in close to me, if I can't shove you out, suppressions. I have suppressions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Once you get in close, I'm toast because I don't have a way to physically defend myself or escape or get out of the way, and that's okay.
I mean, there are options for that, and it's, you got to find what works for you.
Yeah,
Um,
at least on the battlefield.
in the
So that's what I want to get better at
right.
is my physicality so that I have the endurance to do running the message
Mm-hmm.
back with especially spring war size when we're looking at the 300 people on the field numbers again.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that happens again 2022. We're looking forward to it.
You guys have got a site reserved, I believe.
Yes,
So
it's actually beautiful. We
yeah,
had
because
our
it's
meeting
the
there.
mid range site.
Yes, the mid-range site, Nolte
Mhm.
Island in Seguin, Texas. It is beautiful. It's very shady compared to what we're used to.
That's good.
Yes. Oh, yes. Like from a hydration standpoint, I was like, there's shade,
Mm-hmm.
a field. This is amazing.
Yeah, because
You know?
the if you haven't been to Spring War, there's a hill with some trees and some trees, and then it stops, and that's the battlefield.
Yep.
And it's like an ex wheat field, and there's
No,
nothing.
it's a hayfield.
Is that what it is? There's nothing
Yeah,
there.
there's nothing there. It's open grass, and the few days leading up to spring war, they go in and mow it,
Mm-hmm.
and we purchase basically some of their hay bales to use as our stuff, our boundaries and our borders and things.
It's a
Um,
lot of fun, but it is in the sun.
it's in the sun all the time, constantly
Yep.
in the sun. But yeah,
Yeah.
Nolte Island has some beautiful shade, and it's wonderful and it's lovely, and I'm very happy that we have it. So I'm looking forward to actually trying out Battlefield Tactician.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what Night of Battle, the description of it was
Mm-hmm.
for, was being able to use tactics in the field of battle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel I need spell abilities or immunities or
Hmm.
armor or weapons to do that, because you know what? There were some generals who didn't have weapons
Hmm.
in history.
I
You
mean,
know, they
especially
would,
once we got to like Renaissance and beyond, they just started being communicative directors essentially.
yep, they were backline generals.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the skill and the thing I'm gonna try to get better at is being a general. That
It's
would be cool. I
it's
would like
uh
to be a general.
it's interesting. Um, I mean, there's a lot of books you can go and read on it, so that is the advantage. Uh, it also isn't something you can just like idly practice in your pastime. Like you kind of have to be paying attention to it instead of other like if you have an ability or whatever, you can kind of just like say it to yourself over and over again until you get fast. This takes a lot more active. Like okay, I've got 2 lines lined up, and it's a lot of work. Um,
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work, especially for
yeah.
me. Especially in the particular province that I'm in, which is not a very populated province. We're not like Traders Gate that has,
Mm-hmm.
in their heyday, they were boasting numbers of 40 or 50 players a weekend, active players showing
Mm-hmm.
up. They were basically small kingdom events every single weekend.
Mm-hmm.
My group is lucky to have 15 players. We're
It's
we're barely any numbers. And I know that sounds like, "Oh, poor thing." No, like everyone is dealing with that. We get it. You're
well,
not special.
no, but that is a it's a little over average. The average
Yeah,
park
it's a
in
little
Amtgard is
over
a
it.
barony.
Right. Which is 12.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we're
depends on your kingdom.
oh,
It does.
CK, it's 12. Hi.
It.
Yeah, so we're barely at barony numbers. So
Hmm.
we're at about a dozen people, 12 to 15.
Hmm.
Good weekend, we'll hit 20-ish.
Hmm.
We used to be, you know, Traders Gate numbers. We used to be, 30, 40.
Hmm.
But COVID happened and, you know,
Yep.
got to rebuild on that yearly basis. So I don't have a
Yeah.
field that I can practice as big
I
war
mean, you can still
size.
practice on the small fields. It's just
It's
it's
different.
it is different because your calculations move away. Every person, every body means so much
Mm,
more than they do on
yeah.
a large field, and it's I almost want to say it's higher stakes because it feels much more similar to like Age of Empire styles where you're moving large. You have one icon and it indicates like 30 people. That's kind of what you're doing. You're risking all 30 people on one move
Yeah.
because you're only doing 12v12 instead of 100v100. So
Yeah. Well, we're doing, some days we're doing 3v3s,
mhm.
so
That is a great place to learn the shape of battle.
it's 3 people.
Yeah.
Hi. Today we're going to learn how to split down the middle, a hammer and anvil with 3 people.
I was at Crimson Circle, which is Green Bay, Wisconsin, last weekend, and we did about 45 minutes of just 4 of us practicing 2v2s with a sword and board and a Pullman. That was 45 minutes just practicing working around that. You can learn skirmishes and everything every time. You just have to have people to do it with you. You can't do it
I
solo.
Yeah, I think that the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start. Normally, my husband and our champion, both of whom are accomplished
Mm-hmm.
field fighters, they usually balance the teams. So
Mm-hmm.
I think my next steps is to go in and sit next to them while they're balancing and watch how they balance, and then watch the battlefield and watch how that balance interacted, and
Mm-hmm.
then kind of pick their brains and be like, okay, so why did you counter this person?
Mm-hmm.
What was your thought process on that, and where did you go? And then give it a go and
Mm-hmm.
ask, a couple weekends from now, hey, can I try to balance the teams?
Yep.
Where the joke is, you don't want me balancing teams because I am notoriously trash at balance. But
You got to
that's a skill I
practice.
have to work on.
Mm-hmm. You got to
Yeah, that's
practice. You'll get better at
that's
it.
what I'm going to focus on and get better at.
Awesome. Um, so we have a question that we always ask all the paragons, and in this class, I don't think it actually applies because the class is basically about creating fun and sustainability. So normally we ask how do you get better and not ruins people's fun because that's the ultimate thing when you're playing a class you become oppressive. it's hard to become oppressive when your whole job is to make the game better.
Okay, well, maybe you can get oppressive by stepping on people's toes.
Hmm.
So if as a color you are constantly taking over feeding people,
Hmm.
but this is an event time, that's the feastocrat's job. You're stepping on their toes.
Hmm.
And they have volunteered to be feastocrat because for them in that moment, that's their fun.
Hmm.
That's what's bringing them joy for that event is to do that hard work. And if you come in and take over, you're ruining their fun.
Hmm.
So even though you may be getting better at being a feastocrat, you're ruining their fun.
Hmm.
So it still applies. You can still try to better yourself as a color class and ruin someone's fun. And that happens when you overstep your boundaries.
Okay, so knowing your boundaries is a good way to not ruin people's fun.
Yep.
Um, is there other ways that you'd be able to or should be aware of so that you're not stepping over boundaries, or is it mostly you have to watch your boundaries and make sure that your color service is not bleeding into other services and stopping them from being able to utilize their time?
Um okay, so I had told the story earlier of how I started it where I noticed how hydration was being run and I went, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I basically stepped on their toes. I did exactly what I said we shouldn't do. Um and I they stopped hydrating. That entire group of people, I haven't seen those people. And so it keeps me up at night. I wonder, I worry, did I push out X number of players? Do they not want to come back to their field because I made them feel unwelcome because I got annoyed with how they were doing something and I wanted to do better because I wanted to protect my friends and my family? Like, did I ruin their fun to the point where they don't come back?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know because I don't have contact with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really fully remember names anymore because this was going on half a decade ago now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of school has happened since then, and my brain is
Yeah.
complete mush.
You've got a
So
bunch of
if
different
you're
names in your
watching,
head.
bunch of different names. So if you're watching, if you were one of those people and you remember that moment, and if I did do that to you, and here's where I break down and become emotional, I'm very sorry. Um, it wasn't my intention to push you out to make you stop having fun, and so if I did, mea culpa, my bad. I'm sorry.
Well, so
Let's
that
have a
that
conversation.
it brings up another point. You can, if you realize you're stepping on people's toes, or you think you might be stepping on people's toes, um, trying to bring them into what you're doing or allow them to direct you. I know, I want to say it was a couple years ago. We didn't have Trashocrat as like a standard person. It was just part of Securocrat or something else or Cytocrat. And one of our members very kind of pointedly was like, I want to do that role because I'm good at it. I know how to do it. And they went to whoever was in charge of it and was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help, but I don't want to like steal your thunder, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Working with people is going to make your job easier. If they're not willing to work with you and they're doing it wrong, you might have to step on their toes. But
Yeah.
that's part of our game. We don't have a great overwatch, like we don't have somebody watching over us all the time. So it's up to all of us to keep everybody on track and doing the right thing and being safe. So
Yeah.
uh, we can't have hydration-ocrats handing out beer all the time. That doesn't help
No.
anybody.
No. In fact, quite the opposite. There was the Friday night drinking at Spring War. And I went down with my tray of drinks and I made them look like jello shots. And so they looked like jello shots, but they were perfectly clear because it was water.
Yeah.
And, so I'd go, hey, you want a shot? Do a shot with me. I'll do a shot with you. Let's do shots. Let's do shots. Shots, shots, shots. And so I'd get this whole ring of people, shots, shots, shots. And we go, okay. And they'd all take a drink and invariably they'd go, oh, you're the hydration. Oh, that was water. No, that's good. I need it. You know what? Give me some more water.
Tricking people into drinking correctly. Matt,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh, that was great. I don't know why I told this story, but it was one.
No, it's a beautiful example of utilizing the color to do your job right, which is making sure people don't pass out drunk where they
And that they're
shouldn't.
not so hung over the next morning that they can't play in the early Ironmans at
Hmm.
10 a.m.
It's weird to say.
Torches.
Hold on. There are like 4 torches you can watch, and you know that they're still going to be up for the Iron Man, but they're also going to drink their brains out. And
Yeah, they're gonna float the keg. They're gonna finish off that Jim Beam or the Jack Daniels or whatever hard liquor they're doing that night, and they're still gonna whoop your ass on the. I'm sorry.
they,
Can I?
no, you're completely swear. I hit the explicit button. We're good. The,
Okay.
it is. I've partied with torches before because my knight is Mhog, so he's the
Right.
squire for the torch friend, whatever. He's friends of torches, and
Right. He's
uh,
Hog.
yeah, I've witnessed 4 or 5 people. I was like, you're gonna be dead in the morning, and they are up earlier than I am. I'm like, what the hell happened? You didn't drink
Not
water at all last night, and they're like,
cool.
but I did. You didn't notice, and then they like waltz to the field and kick everyone's butt.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't need to hydrate the torches. I've learned that they can take care of themselves. I will still offer water.
Good plan.
Um, and Diego has taken me up on water many times, so has
Hmm.
Chango and things. Dizzy. Um, but I mean, I know they know what they're doing because they come at Amp as the sport.
Hmm.
And so they know how to take care of their bodies. And through training their acolytes, they teach each other how to take care of their bodies, even when they're doing the stupid frat boy things.
Yeah, like beer pong, but with shots.
Valley rallies.
Yeah, Torch Olympics is if you've never don't
Or
participate in Torch Olympics, you're not ready for it. If you if
you'll never
you
be ready for it.
no if you watch Torch Olympics, it's fantastic. If
Oh,
you
it's the best.
participate, you're
But
dead.
don't make Torch Olympics a drinking game because it's just as bad as participating.
That's true. That's true. It's an interesting thing.
It is. It's good times.
It is definitely a unique experience at Spring War. Um okay, we have one audience member. Lumpy, do you have any questions? I'm gonna take that as a no. Um,
She's muted. She came in to give us an audience and then she wandered off AFK.
oh, Lumpy, yeah. Lumpy might have done that for us. um,
That's sweet. I feel like there's people here, but there's still no one here.
yeah, well, most of the views happen on YouTube anyways. So,
Yeah.
do you have any? And I have to put constructive in front of this. Do you have any constructive spicy takes about Paragon or Color at all?
Um, don't underestimate us. Stop underestimating us. Stop patronizing us.
Hmm.
Stop patting us on the head and saying that we're just attendants, we're just bystanders.
Hmm.
Because if you're in garb, you're color also. And now you're calling yourself something that doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So please stop. I don't like you insulting yourself.
Yeah,
Constructive and spicy?
that
Enough at the same
that
time?
works. That works. It works.
Hi, I dropped into teacher voice there. Sorry.
It works very well. I had to put constructive in front of it because I got some complaints about one of my first episodes where just like spicy takes, and not all of them were constructive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know any other spicy takes. I mean, really, we're just unlike the other classes that are fighting to be better at what they do.
Hmm.
We're basically fighting to be recognized.
Hmm. And that's a really hard challenge.
Yeah, it's what basically every marginalized section of our population in the real world is facing right now.
Hmm. It's rough. I mean, it's an uphill battle all the time.
Yeah,
And
it's okay. Here's the spicy part.
mhm.
Um, it, colored people We're people of color.
Hmm.
This is getting awkward. Did I make it awkward? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, we're please recognize us.
Hmm.
Especially the weird ones like me that are like, "No, I can totally do stuff on the battlefield."
Hmm.
And it's because, I grew up on the battlefield. I know I've had conversations with people. I've never seen you fight. I've never seen you pick up a weapon. I know. That's only been the past 5 years, sweetheart. I know
Hmm.
that's all you've ever known me as, but, you know, I've been around.
Hmm.
I've done my time. I've run into a tree. I've gotten knocked down by a throwing spear before throwing spears were in the rules because it was throwing spears were spears that you threw.
Yeah.
So they were 7 foot long, 1 pound per linear foot,
Yeah.
shaped spear
Yep.
thrown by 6 foot tall man
Hmm.
at 5 foot tall 15-year-old.
Amcart has a bad habit of overweighing weapons in early years.
Yeah, that was a thing,
Uh,
especially when it rained.
oh God, yeah.
And playing in the swimming pool. I remember my my parks, my original parks, 13-year-old me first park,
Hmm.
their first battlefield was in our founder's swimming pool with carpet foam and duct tape weapons.
Yeah, I'm very glad I did not start in the 90s, the 80s and 90s,
Yeah,
because uh
it was a hot mess.
I mean, high school me would have died. I was a
Yeah,
very small man.
I am surprised none of my high school me friends died. We could have. Our founder also several years later he'd made himself a door shield.
Hmm.
Okay, tower shield, so big tall shield, but no, he took the door off of his closet, took off the hardware, strapped like broke out one of the side panelings and strapped straps to it,
Uh-huh.
and then patted the edge of that and took that on the field because he was tall enough. This wasn't a tower shield, it was a door shield because it was literally his closet door. He left it in his garage because he took a break for about a year and a half to do college things, and he came back and he grabbed all of his stuff out of his closet, out of his garage rather, um, threw it in the trunk of his car, came to park, strapped on his shield, and went to fight. And afterwards, he was like, "Man, my arm hurts." And we're like, "What's wrong?" He's still holding a shield. We're like, "What's wrong? Well, let's see. What happened to your arm? What are you feeling?" He's like, "Throbbing, man. Like, goosh, goosh, goosh." He took his arm out and his arm was swollen like this
Oh.
because hornets had built a nest inside of his shield.
Oh.
He thought his shield was just buzzing.
That's so terrible. Like, that's I feel really bad for him because that just could not have been fun at all. Uh
Like, and that's the perfect that's the perfect example of the kind of player that gets into flow and doesn't stop to think about what's going on with their body.
being stung by a bunch of hornets and not recognizing you got stung by a bunch of hornets. I mean,
Yeah, until
that's the same
afterwards.
problem we have with people running through like poison ivy in
Yeah,
combat all the time.
yeah, yeah. And so, color, if you're wanting to color on combat field, like that's the that's the kind of player that you're.
Watching out for.
Yes. Oh dear God. My brother-in-law, if you're watching, I'm sorry I told that story about you and your youth. My sister married him.
That's fun. I mean, everybody's got crazy stories about hurting themselves in Amcard somehow,
Yeah,
especially the 80s and 90s.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, don't turn muddy, rainy days into free-for-all mosh pits. Especially do not put weapons in the center and go, okay, you guys get to wrestle for your weapons.
Oh, no, no.
We had a broken collarbone.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Mm-mm. Uh, there's a reason wrestling has a lot of strict rules and takes
Yeah,
place on a foam mat.
yeah. And not on an amp guard field.
Yeah,
Oh my
yes.
god.
I understand grappling is part of Dagger here and Belagarth, and they also have strict rules about it. Um, yeah, it's not great. it's
God.
it is a very aggressive sport that involves attempting to manipulate your opponent's body with yours. It's never easy.
No.
No.
Should not be attempted by the weekend enthusiast
Mm-hmm.
with no physical training and probably does not hit the gym.
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. Um, anything else to add to the episode before we clear up?
Um, Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more.
Yeah.
You can
Uh,
follow my YouTube channel if you want all of that good high school geometry videos.
hey, hold on. If we're following Tato, fighting is just math, mostly triangles and geometry.
Yes.
It's mostly just triangles and cones. It's very true. So you could learn more by knowing, how to figure out cones.
Sure.
I mean, kind of.
Kind of. I mean, definitely having that analytical math mind and being able to think through a geometric proof can make you a good tactician because you're thinking that logical step and
Mm-hmm.
step and step and what happens if I do this and what happens if I try that. And I mean, there's that argument.
Mm-hmm. I mean the if
Like
and
that really
statements
a
and stuff.
mathematician.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
If and statements, kind of like
Yeah.
if and whatever happen, this is most likely outcome. That stuff.
Yeah. If this, then this.
Yep.
If this, else that.
Mm-hmm. They're kind of just
Yeah.
logical breakdowns.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, like and subscribe for more. Thanks so much for watching.
All right, so thank you for coming on, and unfortunately, it looks like Bonnie couldn't get her signal back up, but
Yeah.
I don't plan on ending this series at any point soonish, so maybe we'll get some more time. Thank you again, and
Thank you for
recorded.
having me.
Good.
Sorry.
You're good. Recorded Merrick will roll us out. This has been another episode of The Paragon Path. If you liked what you heard or saw, please drop us a like and follow on YouTube or Spotify or Google Music or anywhere else that you can find us. We have a Facebook page on The Path that lets you know when we're recording, what you can join into, and what to expect next. We record these episodes live every other weekend on the Kingdom of Polaris Discord. Link is in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe, comment, or just drop us a line. As always, happy to see you on the field. See you next time.